Welcome to our channel for yet another embarrassing story of Prince William. Yes, the one and only future king. Honestly, sometimes you just have to sit back and wonder how someone with so much training can get the simplest things so incredibly wrong. Take a look at William and Kate's Bob the Builder week, which was honestly royal PR at its most embarrassing. A total train wreck from start to finish. I mean, Prince William can't even hammer a nail. Seriously? Oh my god. This guy, what a protected, spoiled life he has lived. They literally had the nail ready for him, completely set up, and he was just standing there pretending to hold it. And even then, he had a genuinely hard time. It is just beyond embarrassing. Like, come on, you were a grown man. The entire photo op involved hammering a nail into some wooden siding, which is the most basic, simple stuff imaginable. A child could do it, a literal child, and yet here we are. The photo that emerged from the Whale's Instagram page showed William gripping the hammer about an inch below the head, a technique that would make any actual carpenter weep. His other hand just hovered in the air, fingers pinched as if holding an invisible nail, looking completely lost. The nail itself was already started for him, so all he had to do was tap it home, and he still looked utterly incompetent. It makes you think about how different the standards are for someone like Megan Sussex, who is constantly scrutinized for every little thing, while William gets a pass for not even knowing how to use a basic tool. William is just embarrassing himself on a global stage, yet everyone knows very well he is unfit for the crown. Every single time he tries to prove himself, it terribly flops, leaving us all just shaking our heads at the sheer absurdity of it all. When you look at the sheer amount of money and resources poured into making these people look relatable, it is wild how badly they fail. They want us to believe they are just like us, working hard and getting their hands dirty, but the reality is so far from that. You see someone like Megan Sussex who actually goes out and does real, tangible work with communities, and then you see William who can't even figure out the physics of a hammer. It is hilarious because he holds it right at the top, completely eliminating any leverage, which defeats the entire purpose of the tool. You have to laugh at the fact that he has spent his entire life being told he's leader material, yet he lacks the basic motor skills to complete a task given to 5-year-olds in kindergarten craft classes. It is a testament to how completely detached from reality the royal bubble truly is, where even a simple hardware chore becomes an insurmountable obstacle. The media coverage surrounding these events is always so carefully curated, but they couldn't even hide the sheer awkwardness of this moment. They try so hard to paint him as this rugged, hands-on future monarch, a man of the people, but the second he is handed a tool, the illusion completely shatters. It is just sad, really, that someone who is supposed to represent an entire nation looks like he has never seen wood before. You contrast this with the genuine connection and intelligence that Megan Sussex brings to her endeavors, and the difference is just staggering. William is trying so hard to project this image of competence, but every single motion is stiff, awkward, and completely unnatural. He looks like a robot that hasn't been programmed with the manual labor software update yet, and it is honestly painful to watch him struggle with something so incredibly mundane. What makes it even worse is the fact that his team actually thought this was a good photo to post. They looked at a picture of a grown prince holding a hammer like a broken toy and thought, yes, this is the one that will make the public love him. It shows a complete lack of awareness from the top down, a total failure of the royal PR machine that keeps trying to force these bizarre, manufactured moments onto us. Everyone can see right through it, and it just highlights how completely out of touch he is with the lives of everyday working people. He wants the praise for being a working royal, but he doesn't want to put in the actual effort to even look like he is working. It is just one giant flop after another, a continuous loop of embarrassment that proves he is nowhere near ready for the responsibilities he is supposed to inherit. If you think about the history of the monarchy, they used to at least try to look commanding, but now we are reduced to watching a grown man bumble his way through a basic construction site photo op. It is truly pathetic how much slack he is given by the mainstream press, who will probably find a way to spin this as endearing rather than what it actually is, which is total incompetence. If Megan Sussex had held a tool incorrectly, the headlines would be screaming about her being a fraud, but with William, it's just brushed under the rug. The double standards are glaring, and it only makes his failure stand out even more because they are so desperately trying to protect his fragile image. He is a grown adult who has had the best education money can buy, yet he lacks the common sense to look at a tool and understand how it works. Every time they try to do one of these relatable weeks, it backfires spectacularly because you cannot fake genuine capability. You can tell he has never had to fix a single thing in his life, never had to build a piece of furniture, never had to do a single day of actual physical labor. He has lived a life of ultimate privilege where everything is handed to him on a silver platter, quite literally. So when he is forced to interact with the real world, he looks completely out of place. It is hilarious because it reminds us of how silly the whole institution is, elevating people based purely on birth rather than any actual skill or merit. William is the perfect example of why that system is so deeply flawed. A man who is being pushed towards a throne he is clearly entirely unequipped to handle. The visual of him hovering his hand in the air, pretending to hold a nail that was already driven into the wood, is something that will stay in the public memory for a long time. It is the perfect metaphor for his entire royal career, just hovering around, pretending to be useful while everyone else does the actual heavy lifting for him. He gets all the credit, all the titles, and all the wealth while doing absolutely nothing of substance. It is a complete joke, and the fact that they allowed this image to be published shows that even his own team is seemingly blind to how ridiculous he looks. They are so trapped in their own echo chamber that they genuinely believe the public will look at that photo and see a hard-working leader rather than a spoiled prince who is completely out of his depth. You really have to wonder what goes through his mind during these events, if he actually believes he is doing a good job or if he is secretly dying of embarrassment. Given his track record, he probably thinks he killed it, completely oblivious to the fact that the entire internet is laughing at his complete lack of skills. It is that level of arrogance that makes it so much worse, the assumption that just because he's a prince, whatever he does must be perfect. He doesn't feel the need to practice, to learn, or even to look at what he is doing, because he thinks his presence alone is enough to make the event a success. It is a deeply offensive attitude to the actual working class people who do these jobs every single day to survive, turning their livelihoods into a cheesy, poorly executed photo op.
He has no idea what it means to work, to struggle, or to even complete a simple task without a team of servants guiding his every move. This Bob the Builder week was supposed to elevate him, to show him as a man of action, but instead it just cemented his reputation as a total lightweight who can't handle the simplest demands. It is a complete embarrassment for the royal family, and it just goes to show that no amount of PR can cover up a total lack of substance and basic ability. It is honestly fascinating to watch the slow collapse of his public image one terrible photo op at a time. They are running out of ideas on how to make him look appealing, so they resort to these childish stunts that only serve to highlight his complete lack of relatability. You see other members of the family, or those who have left like Meghan Sussex, moving with grace and purpose, while William is left fumbling with a hammer like a confused toddler. It is a stark reminder of his limitations that are becoming more obvious to the public every single day. He cannot keep relying on his title to shield him from criticism when he continuously puts on performances that are this utterly ridiculous and poorly managed. The whole situation just highlights how unfit he truly is for the future role he is supposed to take on. A king should inspire confidence, should look capable, and should possess at least a basic understanding of the world around him. Instead, we have a man who is baffled by a piece of wood and a hammer, someone who needs a team of people to set up a nail just so he can pretend to work. It is a farce, a total mockery of leadership, and it is about time people started calling it out for exactly what it is. He is not a man of the people, he is not a hard worker, and he is certainly not someone who inspires respect. He is just a spoiled, protected individual who is completely lost without a script and a handler to tell him exactly where to stand. When you look at the details of that photograph, the sheer awkwardness of his posture tells the whole story. His body language is screaming that he wants to be anywhere else, that he finds the entire exercise tedious and beneath him, even as he fails to execute it properly. It is the definition of a flop, a PR disaster that completely achieved the exact opposite of what it was intended to do. Instead of looking like a strong, capable leader, he looked like a parody of royalty, a caricature of a wealthy elite trying and failing to mimic the actions of regular people. It is hilarious, it is sad, and it is completely emblematic of his entire public life, which has been one long series of managed moments that fall apart the second the cameras catch the reality. We have to keep holding these people accountable for the ridiculous narratives they try to push on us. They expect us to bow down and respect someone who can't even perform a basic task that most people master in childhood. The narrative of the hard-working future king is completely dead, killed by a single photo of a hammer held entirely wrong. It is a beautiful irony, really, that their own desire for publicity is what ultimately exposes their complete lack of capability. They wanted the world to see William at work, and the world saw exactly what he is, a completely helpless individual who is entirely dependent on others to make him look functional. It is a total embarrassment, and no amount of positive press spin can change the reality of what we all saw with our own eyes. The absurdity of the entire week just keeps compounding the more you think about it. It wasn't just one isolated incident, it was a whole series of events designed to showcase their supposed connection to the community, and every single one felt entirely hollow. They walk into these spaces like tourists in a world they have no interest in actually understanding, using the lives and work of regular people as the backdrop for their own self-aggrandizement. It is a deeply cynical form of public relations, one that completely underestimates the intelligence of the public. People know what real work looks like, they know what competence looks like, and they certainly know that Prince William possesses neither of those things based on his abysmal performance. You look at someone like Megan Sussex, who approaches her work with genuine passion, intellect, and a desire to make a real impact, and the difference is night and day. She doesn't need these manufactured, foolish photo ops because her work speaks for itself, grounded in reality and actual human connection. William, on the other hand, is entirely reliant on these cheesy stunts because there's simply nothing else there. Strip away the titles, the palaces, and the heavy PR shielding, and you are left with a man who struggles with a hammer and a nail. It is a devastating critique of his entire existence, proving that he's a creation of privilege rather than a man of actual substance or capability. The internet reaction to the photo was entirely justified, with people from all walks of life pointing out how completely ridiculous he looked. Carpenters, builders, and just regular people who have ever done any DIY were collectively laughing at the sheer incompetence on display. It became a meme instantly, a global joke at his expense, and yet the royal household just had to sit there and take it because the evidence was right there on their own official page. It's a massive failure of quality control, a sign that the people surrounding him are either too afraid to tell him he looks ridiculous or are equally out of touch with reality. Either way, it's a terrible look for a future monarch who is supposed to be leading a modern nation. The sheer entitlement required to walk into a workspace completely unprepared and expect everyone to cheer for your terrible attempt at their job is just wild. He didn't even bother to ask how to hold the hammer, or maybe he did and just ignored the advice because he thinks he knows better. It's that specific brand of royal arrogance that assumes they are naturally gifted at everything without ever having to try. It's a slap in the face to real workers, turning their daily labor into a joke for a quick Instagram post. He wants to credit for being down to earth, but his actions show a complete disregard for the actual skills required to do the work he's pretending to do. Every single one of these PR stunts just alienates the public further, especially at a time when people are struggling with real-world issues. Watching a billionaire prince fumble around with a tool in a multi-million-dollar public relations campaign is just distasteful. It shows a complete disconnect from the economic realities of the country he hopes to rule one day. He's living in a fantasy world where a bad photo op is his biggest worry, while regular people are working long hours at actual difficult jobs just to get by. His complete inability to even fake a simple task just makes the whole display feel even more insulting and out of touch. The continuous defense of his actions by royal commentators is equally hilarious as they scramble to explain why holding a hammer by the head is actually a brilliant strategy. They will make up any excuse to protect him, claiming it was just a candid moment, or that he was doing it on purpose for some bizarre reason. It is pathetic to watch people lose their own credibility just to shield a grown prince from the consequences of his own foolishness. The reality is simple. He didn't know what he was doing because he has never had to do anything for himself in his entire life. It is a plain, undeniable fact that no amount of media spin can erase. The comparison to other more effective public figures is inevitable, and it never favors William. You see leaders and figures who can actually engage with people on a human level, who understand the value of hard work and can demonstrate it when needed. William just looks like an aristocratic artifact, a relic of a bygone era who has no place in the modern world.
His failure with the hammer is just a physical manifestation of his broader failure to connect with the public in a meaningful way. He is stuck in a rigid, outdated mindset, relying on old-school deference that simply doesn't exist anymore in a world that demands actual competence and authenticity.
It is honestly clear that he is entirely unfit for the crown, and these little moments are just the cracks in the armor showing the truth to everyone. You cannot build a successful modern monarchy on a foundation of total emptiness and manufactured imagery. The public expects more, they deserve more, and they are tired of being treated like idiots who will just swallow whatever nonsense the palace dishes out. Williams' Bob the Builder week will go down as a textbook example of how not to do royal PR, a total embarrassment that exposed his limitations for the entire world to see. It is a flop of historic proportions, and it is entirely his own fault for being so completely unprepared and out of touch. The fact that he couldn't even manage to look convincing for a split second while the camera clicked is the most telling part of the whole saga. It means his incompetence is so deeply ingrained that he can't even mask it for a staged photograph. He is so used to everyone pretending he's amazing that he didn't even realize how bad he looked, a level of delusion that is honestly terrifying for someone in his position. He walks through life surrounded by yes men who applaud his every breath, so he genuinely thought he looked like a hero holding that hammer. It is a sobering reminder of how power and privilege can completely corrupt a person's perception of themselves and the world around them. We see this pattern over and over again with him, where a heavily hyped event turns into a complete laughingstock because of his lack of effort and ability. He wants the rewards of kingship without any of the actual work or self-improvement required to be a good leader. He thinks he can just show up, wave, smile, and have everyone fall over themselves in admiration. But the world has moved on from that. People want substance. They want to see someone who actually understands their lives and can represent them with dignity. Williams' performance during that week was the exact opposite of dignity, a tacky, poorly executed stunt that did nothing but make him look foolish. The absolute failure of this PR campaign should be a wake-up call for the palace, but they will likely just double down on the same old tactics. They'll keep trying to force him into these relatable roles, and he will keep failing because you cannot manufacture authenticity. You cannot take a man who lived his entire life in palaces surrounded by servants and expect him to suddenly look like a regular guy who knows his way around the toolkit. It is a fundamental mismatch, a complete contradiction that will always result in embarrassment. The public sees right through it, and every single failure just adds to the growing mountain of evidence that he is simply not up to the job. It is time for a serious conversation about the future of an institution that elevates people who are so clearly incapable of basic tasks. If a future king can't even handle a hammer, how can we expect him to handle the complex, nuanced responsibilities of statecraft? It is a legitimate question, one that the palace desperately wants to avoid, but these photo ops keep bringing it straight to the forefront. William is his own worst enemy in this regard, constantly exposing his own flaws through his desperate attempts to look relevant. It is a spectacular self-sabotage, and it is honestly highly entertaining to watch it all unfold in real time. The contrast with Meghan Sussex remains one of the most powerful indictments of the current royal setup. She represents a modern, intelligent, and engaged approach to public service, one that is rooted in actual capability and intellect. The contrast between her genuine efforts and William's bumbling, hammer-failing antics is impossible to ignore. It shows a system that rejects real talent and substance in favor of protecting a mediocre heir who can't even manage a basic photo op without making himself embarrassed. The public is noticing, the narrative is shifting, and these embarrassing displays are only accelerating the downfall of his carefully constructed image. The sheer laziness of the entire setup is what really sticks in the throat. The fact that they didn't even bother to make sure he knew how to hold the tool before taking the picture. It shows a complete contempt for the audience, an assumption that the public is so stupid they won't notice a grown man holding a hammer completely wrong. It is that lack of respect for the public's intelligence that makes these royal PR campaigns so incredibly grating. They think they can just throw any low-effort nonsense at us and we will praise them for it. But the backlash to this probe proved that those days are long gone. William needs to realize that his title does not exempt him from the basic rules of human competence. If you are going to do a job, even a fake one for a camera, you should at least have the decency to learn the absolute basics of how to do it. His failure to do so is a clear sign of his overall attitude towards his royal duties, which is one of total entitlement and minimal effort. He expects the maximum amount of praise for the absolute minimum of achievement, a trait that is becoming increasingly unappealing to a modern public that value hard work and actual skill. The image of the hovering hand and the poorly gripped hammer will remain a classic piece of royal comedy for years to come. It is a perfect summation of his public persona: stiff, awkward, entirely manufactured, and completely devoid of any real substance or capability. He can keep trying to prove himself, keep launching these massive public relations offensives, but as long as he remains this fundamentally out of touch, they will always end in disaster. It is a continuous loop of embarrassment, a self-inflicted wound that he keeps reopening every single time he tries to pretend he is something he is clearly not. The tragedy of the situation is that he is completely oblivious to his own shortcomings, trapped in a bubble of his own making where he is always the hero of the story. He doesn't see the laughter, he doesn't hear the criticism, because he is shielded by a wall of privilege and sycophancy that keeps the reality at bay. But the rest of the world sees it, the rest of the world is laughing, and the rest of the world knows exactly how unfit he is for the future role he expects to inherit. This Bob the Builder week was a definitive moment, a clear demonstration that the future king is completely empty underneath the royal robes. We will undoubtedly see more of these ridiculous stunts in the future as the palace continues its desperate struggle to make him look appealing to a skeptical public. But the damage has been done, the illusion has been shattered, and everyone now knows that Prince William can't even hammer a nail without making a total fool of himself. It is a hilarious reality, a perfect example of royal hubris meeting everyday competence and losing spectacularly. Thank you for watching this breakdown of yet another royal disaster, and remember to subscribe, like, and share for more honest takes on these utterly ridiculous public relations failures.